One of the most popular phrases that rabbis love to throw around is the phrase, to meet a person where they are. If a person is far from religion, then we go to meet them, whether it's at the bars, in their homes, on the phone, through email, wherever a person is on their journey, we meet them there. However, there also seems to be a tension because at least the Orthodox understanding of Jewish law, according to the Shulchan Aruch, is that things are very black and white, very clear. It's kind of all or nothing. Either you do it according to this, or you're not doing anything. So the question is there something in between? Is there a flexibility and an openness to where people are on their journey and what they're capable of, balancing the idea that there's still this obligation in creating our connection with Hashem? And we see in the book of Vayikra that very idea. We are beginning this week reading, whether in our homes or wherever we are, the third book of the Torah, the third of the 5 books of the Chumash. And Vayikra deals with all of the laws having to do with the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the meeting place between us and Hashem. So it deals a lot with ritual, particularly sacrifices. And there's all kinds of different sacrifices, whether a person is grateful for something, whether it's a holiday, or in this case, if someone sins. So if we look in our parsha, it says that if a person swears something to God, promises something to Hashem, and then they sin, they have to bring an offering. And the offering is a goat. Fine, not a big deal. You bring a goat. But then there's a question that we wouldn't think to ask because we're not offering korbanot, sacrifices, what brings us closer to Hashem today. The question is, what if somebody can't afford a goat? What do they do? Well, the Torah, you don't need the rabbis for this, the Torah says explicitly, Ve'im lo tasi gado lishte torim o lishne v'nei yonah vehevi et korbano asher chata asirit ha'efa solet lechatat. So it's actually an earlier verse that said, if a person, lo tasi gado, his hand is not able, he isn't able to afford a goat or a sheep, he can bring 2 turtle doves. And then what I just read here, a few verses later, says, what if a person can't afford 2 doves? What if that's still out of their financial ability? And it says, fine, then your offering will be some fine flour, which is the cheapest thing that hopefully most people would be able to afford. And then the question we have is, how is that the same thing? God said, bring a goat. So a goat it is. But if you can't afford it, a turtle dove, how is that the same thing? How does that fulfill the same obligation? And if we actually look inside the commentary of Rabbi Chaim ibn Attar, 17th, 18th century, known as the Orach Chaim, he brings a commentary, an early commentary from the rabbis, Torat Kohanim. Torat Kohanim darsho, Yado, en omrim lo lilvot, ve'en omrim lo asok be'umanuto, and so forth. It says that, what does it mean that a person can't afford it? It means not only that they can't afford it, but we don't ask them to take out a loan. We don't ask them to work really hard and gain extra money to be able to do it. So we're asking ourselves, so what's even the value in a goat? Now, he doesn't say there's no value in bringing a goat. He says later, if someone can afford a goat, they should bring that as an offering. But he continues on, the hata'am, the reason for this, mishum dechaviva mitzvah bisha'ata, that the ideal way, the beautiful way to fulfill a mitzvah is to do it at the proper time. So the essence here isn't that I'm bringing a goat, isn't that I'm bringing doves, isn't that I'm bringing flour. The essence here is that I'm doing the mitzvah in the best way possible for me, and not putting it off too. What's important is not the actual physical thing, it's that I'm trying to do it in the best way possible for me. And right now, if all I can afford is flour, and now is my time to offer that flour, then I should do it as quickly as I can. Run to bring the flour, because that's what I can afford. And this message comes out even more powerfully earlier, in the beginning of the 2nd chapter, where it says, Ve'nefesh ki takriv korban mincha lashem solet ye korbano, where it says, and a nefesh, we'll talk about what that is in a moment, when they bring close an offering to Hashem of a mincha, of this flour, this fine flour, that will be the sacrifice. And Rashi there comments, he says, Ve'nefesh ki takriv, lo ne'mar nefesh bechol korbanot nedava ela b'mincha. Nowhere else in the entire Torah does it describe a person who brings an offering as a nefesh. It always says a man, or a woman, or a sinner, all these different phrases. It never uses nefesh. Nefesh literally means soul. The etymology may be more complex, but the way it's used is a human soul to differentiate a soul in a human from a plant that is alive. It's a creation of Hashem, but it doesn't have that nefesh. So he continues, so why here by the mincha offering do we say nefesh? Midarko leitnadev mincha. So who's the person who's usually going to be bringing a mincha offering? Ani, a poor person. Just like we saw later in the parsha. The person who can't afford the big, fancy, rich offerings brings the flour offering. Continues, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu ma'aleh ani alav ke'ilu takriv nafsho. And Hashem says, when a poor person brings what they can afford, that is the most expensive thing they can afford, Hashem considers it as if they are offering their very soul. And that's the key thing here. It's not about how rich someone is. I don't want to say it's not about the offering, because if the offering didn't matter, Hashem wouldn't have put it in the Torah. But the real power behind the offering is that a person brings something which is deeply important to them. They bring their whole soul to bear. And this message we see coming throughout Vayikra over and over again, the idea that korban, which comes from the Hebrew word karov, to bring close, that which brings us close to Hashem is giving up something meaningful and powerful to us. And this is true of every relationship. If I love someone dearly, then I will happily sacrifice something important to me, whether it's my money, my time, a certain amount of comfort, not everything, not to give up my life, but definitely to give up things I value because I value that person more. So too here, the Torah is trying to teach us that a person has to give up something of great value to them. For a rich person to give up flour, that's no big deal. But if they give up one of their most expensive goats, that is a sacrifice. For someone who's a little bit more middle class in those days, 2 doves would be a sacrifice for them. And for a poor person, they could never even conceive of owning a goat. But for them to give up flour, the flour that they would usually use to make bread for their family, that is a great sacrifice for them. But why do they do it? Because Hashem means more to them than anything. So not only is that a beautiful message about our connection with other people, that if we value people, we're willing to give something up, but it's really important to consider that right now when we're not able to be in our shuls, we're not able to be together as groups and to do everything in the ideal, fancy way that we want to have these big Pesach Seders with hundreds of people and multiple programs and events going down the line. We're not going to be able to do it in that ideal way. But if we do it in the way that we're able to, yado in our hand, which is through recordings, online, over the phone, but we do it sincerely. We do it, we give up our time, we make it work, then it's as if we've offered our very souls to Hashem. And when we go into Pesach this year and we have Sadarim that might be us, one of us, alone, or a few of our family, we think, this isn't what a Seder is supposed to be. It doesn't really matter how many people are there. It doesn't even matter if you're able to do every little single thing. We should try. That's the balance, to try and do all of the things according to law. But the important thing is to bring your own self, and Hashem will meet you where you are. I wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom and be well.